Welcome to episode 3 of Ask Why, brought to you by the Catholic Commission for Social Justice. In this episode, we're exploring season of creation, and what better way to start than with the Canticle of Creatures by St. Francis of Assisi. Thursday Prayer, Canticle of all creatures. All praise be yours, my Lord, through all that you have made. And first, my Lord, brother sun, who brings the day. How beautiful is he, how radiant in all his splendor. Of you, Most High, he bears the likeness. All praise be yours, my Lord, through sister moon and stars. In the heavens you made them bright and precious and fair. All praise be yours, my Lord, through brothers wind and air. All praise be yours, my Lord, through sister water, so useful, lowly, precious and pure. All praise be yours, my Lord, through brother fire, through whom you brighten up the night. All praise be yours, my Lord, through sister earth, our mother, who feeds us and produces various fruits with colored flowers and herbs. Praise and bless my Lord, and give him thanks, and serve him with great humility. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Welcome to another episode of Ask Why with the Catholic Commission for Social Justice and the Archdiocese Ministry for Migrants and Refugees. My name is Dominique Heffersdoon, and it gives me great pleasure to invite everyone here today. So we are in the midst of a very special and beautiful festival known as the Season of Creation. And it's a wider Christian festival where we're called to love, appreciate, and pray and act for the common good of our home. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome two wonderful people. And I know I always use that word wonderful, but we genuinely beautiful people here on our show today. So we have Annalisa Ramsahai of the Franciscan Institute. Welcome, Annalisa. And we have Angelo Carbonali of Catholic Youth Commission. So welcome both of you. It gives me great pleasure to have you here today because I really feel like this is going to be an informative and rich discussion. Not a lot of people know what the Season of Creation is, despite it being an ecumenical festival, meaning it includes the wider Christian community. Now, off air, Angela wonderfully reminded me that this is a festival that the Roman Catholic Church only really started to participate in a few years ago. So if you're not aware of the full extent of the Season of Creation, that's fine. That's what this show is going to be about today. We're going to give you all the information you need. And we're also going to tell you how you too can act for climate change and climate justice here today. So I'm going to start by kicking off a question immediately to Annalisa. Annalisa, welcome. Could you give us, first off, a background into the Franciscan Institute, and also what is Season of Creation?
Thank you very much, Dominique, and greetings, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for having us. The Franciscan Institute for Personal and Family Development, it is a ministry of the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother, and I work at the Institute as a regional program coordinator. So we have 3 institutes one located in Trinidad and Tobago, one in Grenada, and one in St. Lucia. And we have been, our mission is creating a culture of peace. We're building right relationship using the Franciscan values of compassion, moderation, simplicity, reverence for creation. And that all ties in to what we are talking about today, the Season of Creation. And later we'll discuss more about Laudato Si. So your question of what is Season of Creation and our involvement in there. So Season of Creation, like you rightly said, is an ecumenical celebration. It's really a time of grace that the church ecumenically look at in dialogue, in taking action, whether it is prayer, whether it is some sort of reflection, and also a physical action like a cleanup or garden or something like that. where we really work on renewing our relationship with God, our creator, ourselves, others, other humans, and the environment. So we look at all of creation, and it is a special time that is celebrated annually. So it starts from, the celebration starts on September the 1st, and it ends on the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, who's the patron saint of the environment. It ends on October the 4th. So that is the season of creation in a nutshell. If you do want to know more information, I would love to share more about it. But I would hand back over to you, Dominique.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And, you know, I'm going to kick this over to Angelo one time. So, Angelo, as you rightly said, Season of Creation came on board with Pope Francis. What was it? 6 years ago?
2015, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. And, you know, this is really interesting. And, you know, Annalisa, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. Why? Because this is not a new festival for the wider Christian community. Please remind me, I don't recall off the date, but this has been it was originated from the Eastern Orthodox Christian factions. But why did Pope Francis feel that need to bring the wider Catholic community into this season?
Great question, and an important one too. So if you look at history, in 1989, there is an ecumenical patriarch, Demetrius, and they celebrated on the 1st of September, the World Day of Prayer for Creation. And so you could see the linkage when Season of Creation started. And then they had a World Council of Churches, and they extended that Day of Prayer for Creation to a whole month. And they ended it on October the 4th, which is the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. So you see that ecumenical collaboration. So Pope Francis in 2015, he officially celebrated with the Roman Catholics and joined the others to celebrate Season of Creation. And it has a link because you would realize 2015 is a key year. It is also when Pope Francis launched and published the encyclical letter Laudato Si on Care for a Common Home. So Pope Francis, you know, he's also a great leader in calling Christians, calling all leaders to let's join and take part in caring for creation, being stewards of creation, because the earth. And he recognized that, and looking at the science, you would see in the Laudato Si report, the encyclical letter, he combined the science behind our faith. And he wanted to show that we really need to come together and take action to care for our common home.
And I'm glad you actually highlight that 2015 was a big year. And beyond that, you know, St. Francis of Assisi is the namesake of Pope Francis. You know, and that is a critical tie-in. So the theme for this year is a home for all. And I always like to say, use that inflection, a home for all, because it actually does end on a question mark. It makes us stop and contemplate what is the state of the earth and why is it truly a home for all? Are we including the most vulnerable within our society? And that is a critical thing to bring across. So yes, the theme for Laudato Si is a home for all. And the symbol is the Abraham's tent. So could you please speak to what that means? The open dialogue. Angela, would you like to take a shot at that one?
Sure. Well, I mean, at first I would say that I did appreciate seeing Abraham's tent being the logo for this year, because you know, here at the commission I'm the graphic designer as well. So for me, you know, the visuals have a lot to do with our faith, right? Besides the fact that you know, our whole sacramental imagination, we as Catholics, we see everything through the lens of God, essentially, right? We see creation as graced. So to see Abraham's tent, right, it, I would say it is a big symbol of hospitality, because if we think back to the story of Abraham opening his home to strangers, essentially, but in him doing that, he opened his home to God, right? So I think Abraham's tent is essentially a symbol of, open, radical hospitality, um, you know, non-exclusion to really help encompass all of creation and not just what we want to pick and choose.
Mhm. I love that. And this is exactly something that, at an individual level, we're all now called to contemplate and reflect on. Are we really opening our home to all? And Trinidad and Tobago is in a society, well, we're in a situation where arguably many of us are suffering in some way, whether it be loss of a loved one due to the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it be job losses because of, again, the pandemic we find ourselves in, and we, whether it be the migrant and refugee situation because of the influx of the Venezuelans coming into Trinidad and Tobago. And also, how do we treat the earth? So, Annalisa, you said something really wonderful at the beginning. You highlighted that, this is a time of action, and we can make those individual changes through small things such as gardening. And one challenge I always try to encourage people to do, especially during this time, the season of creation, and I know this might not be popular to most Trinidadians, but reduce your meat consumption. You know, the reality is we're in a situation where global emissions are high because of cattle farming. We're losing a lot of the Amazon to issues such as that. We can make those a substantial impact by choosing healthier diets and maybe even starting a home garden, so making us more self-sustainable also. So, I really feel like this is a wonderful opportunity to highlight things that we can all do at an individual level, which will make a substantial impact. But I think it's important to say here at this time that there are a lot of studies coming out. And Angela, I'm going to speak to you directly on this topic. There are a lot of studies coming about, especially one was reported from the BBC yesterday from the University of Bath, stating that our young people have eco-anxiety because of the state of climate, and they feel as though their life is doomed. And let me quote directly from that article. Nearly
Just
six
that quote too, I was like, oof.
Yes, yeah, it's substantial. Nearly 60% of young people approached said they felt very worried or extremely worried. More than 45% of those questioned said feelings about climate change affected their daily lives. Three-quarters of them said they thought the future was frightening. Over half, 56%, said they think humanity is doomed. That's a very serious headline to put forward. Now, this was a article from the BBC. It was a research study done by the University of Bath. However, I believe it was a global study as well. But I think it's important to highlight at this point, what do the youth in Trinidad and Tobago, how do they feel about this climate change issue?
I think because yeah, reading through the report and everything, um, at least based on what I hear the youth say and what we hear at the Office of Youth Ministry hear the youth say, I think the sentiments are echoed, if not louder. You know, so even hear these statistics are like 75% think this or 60 something percent think that. I think here in Trinidad and Tobago, our youth feel it, yes, and I don't doubt if we were to do a survey that the statistics would come up even higher. You know, I think a lot of times in conversation too, hearing the same thing that they would have said in the report as well, that many feel abandoned or let down by the governments, that essentially is lip service. Um, yeah, because I think ultimately we as the youth, I mean, I say we, I include myself in that, we know that okay, we see this unfolding right before our very eyes,
Mhm.
and it's not a matter of if we need to fix it, but we know it can't go on that way, because if this continues, I think we deep down know humanity won't continue, at least not in the same way. You know, we see all the different effects of climate change. And yeah, we know that it's a really bleak outlook. So, as Catholic youth, I would say ultimately, as difficult as it is, we need to maintain hope. Now, in terms of how practical that is, I think that's where our faith steps in a lot.
I love that. And that is exactly what Pope Francis speaks to, maintaining hope. We can't, there is hope for the future. So even though it is a very dire doom and gloom message, you know, it reminds me of that age-old tale, Pandora's box. The last thing to come out of the box was hope. And we need to really hold on to that now, especially in these times. But that does not mean that we do not take action. This is hope with action. And at this juncture, I would like to ask everyone tuning in to drop in their comments. You know, how do you drop in the comments box? How do you take action around the climate change issue individually within your home? Because we have a regional and a global audience here on Trinity TV, and beyond that, we regionally, we are all small island states. We're the ones who are going to feel the effects of climate change first. And we're the ones who really have to step up, use our voices, and lobby these larger organizations. Because to echo your sentiment, Angelo, you feel as though your governments don't listen. But once again, we're coming with hope and we have a solution. And Annalisa, I'm going to let you speak to this in a second, but I'm going to introduce it. We have a wonderful petition that we can all sign. Remember, you are part of a global Catholic movement. You are part of a global Catholic community, which is 1 billion strong. And with the season of creation, you're actually part of a global Christian community, which is 2.2 billion strong. And we have something that you can take part in. It is the Catholic petition, www.thecatholicpetition.org. And you can sign on to that petition that is actually going to go to the UN's next General Assembly on the climate change, which is COP26 in November. But Annalisa, I'm going to kick it back over to you so you can explain what exactly is this petition about.
Yes, thank you, Dominique. And I'm glad that we share that message of hope, because yes, we are facing a climate emergency, we are facing a COVID pandemic, we are facing economic struggles and so many issues that are going all around us. And it is important that we, amidst all of these struggles and concerns, that we never take away the joy of our hope, especially as Catholics. And, you know, many young persons are becoming aware and they are conscious of these environmental issues. And like Angelo was sharing, one of our last rounded series that we're sharing for the season of creation, is it really a trending topic? Is these eco issues, these climate change issues a trending topic? Or are we really listening to the call and taking some sort of action? And that is why we are inviting you and we're encouraging you to take part in signing this petition that Dominique shared with you. We're having a global petition. We're trying to sign it because Pope Francis is going to be attending the next COP26. And we want to have a global call to all leaders to stop deliberating action and to take concrete action in caring for our common home, our home for all, which includes the future generation who are going to inherit this earth, this beautiful earth that we all need to live in. It gives us our food, water, it gives us our fresh air that we breathe. And right here in Trinidad and Tobago, yes, sometimes we'll be swimming through flood, but we have the love and food and support of each and every one of us that this is what the earth comprised of, our humans too. And the beautiful plants and animals. We could go down to the Caroni River, watch the birds. All of these, we want to say to our children in the future, let us go and look at the Caroni, let us go in the Caroni swamp to look at the scarlet ibis, instead of saying once upon a time there was a Caroni swamp, once upon a time there was a scarlet ibis. So we all understand that precious nature and that national pride that we have, that we want to pass on to our future generation. And this is why we're signing this petition and encouraging others, especially Catholics, to sign this petition, because we want to take this to the leaders and say, let us take action, and let us take action together, collective action, to reduce our carbon footprint, to become not net zero anymore, but a negative carbon now. Because that is the sense of urgency from the last IPCC report. The planet, our blue planet, is now code red. And this way we are encouraging our leaders to have leadership support, not only the government, but we're calling on the church, we're calling on our schools, we're calling on the entire society, even parents at home. You are part of the leaders. We're calling you to take some sort of action. So I hope that you would be able to log on. There are QR codes to sign for to access the petition. It's online. It can be sent to your WhatsApp. You can get it to your Facebook. There are multiple ways. There are forms that are available that you can sign. And we want to have this prepared by October so we could send it in to the next Conference of Parties, the UN Conference of Parties coming up soon. Thank you.
And I have to say, share, because the more people who have access and sign this petition, as you rightly said, Annalisa, we are in a code red situation. And it's almost as though, that people aren't really taking on board what they can do. And if they do take it on board, they don't really act on it. They think, oh, what can I do? This is in government's hands. I'm just a small person. The power of one. God sees you as individual and precious, and you have God's power running through you. You do not even understand or know your potential. It is unlimited, and you can step up for yourself and for humanity and for the earth. So I thank you so much, Annalisa. So I'd like to kind of segue for a minute, because I know our viewers here on Trinity TV love the depth of information that we try to give them. And one beautiful encyclical that all of this is based around is Laudato Si, and I would like to take a moment to really talk about it, because it is a wonderful piece of writing by Pope Francis. And I encourage our audience, if you've not read it, take the time. We will drop a link in the comments box where you can access the Laudato Si full, or even just a few videos, just for your brief information. But we do recommend that you read the whole thing. It is elegant reading that we can take our times and fully digest, because what Pope Francis says is really very profound. So Angelo, what are your opinions and what are your thoughts on Laudato Si?
Well, I think it was about time that we finally have something that's put into the social compendium of the church to really show that, care for creation is necessary. But the thing is, the Catholic Church didn't start wanting to care for creation with Laudato Si. We have like a solid 50 years, if not more, of different popes, calling for environmental stewardship. I'm talking about from back in the 70s, or maybe even it could be late 60s with Pope Paul VI. We had John Paul II come through and say a lot of similar sentiments, Benedict, and then Francis. So it's not that these things weren't addressed from before. The same way the situation got more and more visible to us is the same way the church has been speaking out for a while. So for Francis to be able to put this into, solid writing and to kind of solidify it, like, okay, this is, step by step, line by line, where we stand, as people of faith. I think, I could only say thank God that it happened, but, to be able to see that we stand so strongly for creation, I do think it takes us right back to the beginning, at least from a theological perspective, take us back to Genesis, where God gave us dominion over the earth, and we somehow misconstrued it, and we think dominion means domination, that we just rape the earth essentially and use and abuse until there's nothing left. And it's like, well, no, I don't think that's what God intended for us. He made us part of creation, that integral ecology they talk about in Laudato Si. Um, we are the stewards for creation. We were given the responsibility to care for creation. But, here we are destroying species year by year and, essentially destroying the face of God, right? Because throughout the scriptures, we talk about, the creatures singing God's praises, and God's friends would repeat those praises, right? Instead, we're doing the opposite. Instead, we very much, doing whatever we want as long as it suits us in this very moment. No sort of care that we are all part of this whole, that everything is interconnected. Um, and then, yeah, we ultimately, I would say, destroy God. I'm not saying that creation and God is like, you know, synonymous in the sense of like a very literal sense, but more that everything was made, let's say, through the word, right? We always say everything through him, with him, in him. The word was God, the word was with God, everything was made. God's spirit is very much alive in creation and all of creation. God's spirit is very much there. And if we, as human beings, instead of taking care of creation, choose to destroy creation, we're destroying all God's work, we're destroying a part of God.
And this brings it right back to St. Francis of Assisi, who beautifully would just erupt in joy at the marvel of creation and God's work through creation. And to bring home your point, is it that I love what you said, destroying the face of God, and are we destroying ourselves? Because indeed we are interconnected. Laudato Si speaks to the fact that we need to love the earth like a mother that nurtures us, which it does. If we continue on the path we're going to continue, we as Professor Agard had said in a previous talk that we had done, the environmental system seems to have broken with the heating of the earth. So is it that we are going to choose a path of famine and drought and increased weather systems and flooding, flash flooding, which we have directly experienced? I think here in Trinidad and Tobago this year, we didn't have a dry season. It was a total rainy season, which is a drastic change, and also we need to love the earth as a sister that was created alongside us. This is something that has the earth and all the animal species, all the aspects of creation that we find have just as much right to be here that as we do. And this is this whole idea of dominion. So Annalisa, if you can give your insights into Laudato Si.
Sure. So Laudato Si, that very word, it's the words of St. Francis of Assisi. It's medieval Italian. It means praise be to you. And Pope Francis would have shared that in the encyclical letter in more detail. St. Francis of Assisi wrote this wonderful prayer or song, some may call it a song, the Canticle of Creatures, or the Canticle of the Sun, that many of you know. And that is where Laudato Si phrase came from. Praise be to you, brother sun. Praise be to you, sister moon. And the words of Saint Francis of Assisi, he showed his intimate relationship with God and all of creation, all the different elements of creation. And he wanted to show that close connection and that close love and care, especially as Pope Francis went into further detail to express the crisis that the earth is in peril, right? The earth is becoming more and more like a pile of filth, and it's becoming a throwaway culture. So he wants, and he asks the question at the very heart of the encyclical letter, and you rightly said that this encyclical letter, Laudato Si, you really have to take small parts, and it's meant to be, you could use it as a prayer or form of reflection to digest it, to understand it. Because he's asking in the heart of it, the encyclical letter, what kind of world do you want to leave for those who come after us? Are we hearing the cries of the earth, like Professor Agard shared? Are we hearing the cries of the poor? For example, the refugees, migrants, climate refugees, those vulnerable. And I'm speaking at Earth Summit coming up and preparing to speak about the impact of climate change on the vulnerable persons, especially children. And this is what Laudato Si is about. How are we caring for all of creation? How are we caring for our common home?
And
Thank you.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. How are we caring for the future generations? You know, many of us have families, children, grandchildren, and what is the legacy that we're leaving to them at this stage? You know, and I also love the fact that you've introduced this idea of the throwaway culture. And we do it. We throw away humans. We, if something's not working, we dismiss it. Oh, you know, and this, arguably, this is why the divorce rates are so high. This is why, you know, we have so many issues. But on a very practical level, one thing that we seem to keep doing is throwing away a lot of plastic. And plastic, yeah, please excuse me, I don't know the exact science behind it. I don't know how long it's going to take plastic to decompose, if it does at all. Some plastics I know do, but still, for example, your Massy shopping bags, that plastic does decompose, but then you have the particles which go into the water systems, the water that we drink, the water that's in the sea. And also, you know, I mean, I know it's commonly known, there's plastic, there's that big plastic island in the middle of the Pacific that's the size of Texas, but surely that's growing. And we're in a situation where we now need to be conscious of our use at an individual level. We can recycle, we can make choices, you know, to stop buying single-use plastic in the form of plastic bottles. You know, we're now at a point where we decide. So how can we challenge you? How can you make changes in your home today? So thank you for that, in that beautiful synopsis of Laudato Si. And we strongly encourage you to read it. This is a wonderful encyclical, and Pope Francis clearly outlines how we must move forward at an individual and a humanitarian level to save the environment. Now, I'm sorry, as usual, when we get into these discussions, we run out of time. And we have run out of time for today, but we do encourage you, one, to sign the petition, www.thecatholicpetition.org. And also make changes in your lifestyle today. There's a myriad of ways that we can act now at an individual level within our homes. Reduce our plastic use, carpool. Schools will hopefully be opening back soon. And share your ideas about how you do, you know, your home gardening projects, your vegetarian recipes. Share with your community how you are making a change today, and drop us a line in the comments so we can find out. And we could also share your ideas. We're so open to all the ideas and talents of our audiences. But, you know, any closing words from Angelo and Annalisa? What would you like to say to the general public today?
Annalisa, you want to go first?
Well, I would certainly endorse Dominic's suggestions, and I would invite you to sign that petition at the website that Dominic shared. And I would encourage you to start off with one thing that you can do at home, that you can help and build a Laudato Si family, because Laudato Si is not only about the environment, the Laudato Si is all of creation, and which include yourself. And I invite you to really see how you renew your home, renew the earth, and take that with you.
Thank you. Angelo.
I mean, if I had to recommend one thing, I would encourage, you know, the youth especially to maintain hope. You know, always quoting Mariam Kaba, who she says hope is not an emotion, but it's a discipline. And I think for us as Christians, we very much have to live in hope, even when things seem hopeless. So I would always encourage people to maintain hope.
Wow, you just shifted my perspective there. Sorry to cut you. That's excellent. Yes. Yes, I love that. Hope is a discipline. And I think in this time when when we do feel overwhelmed by the realities of the crises we're going through globally and individually, with the COVID-19, with job losses, with the climate change issue, we do have the inclination to feel overwhelmed. There is hope. And I love that. Hope is a discipline. We can stay there. And we do that by connecting deeply to God. Pray for the earth. If there's nothing else that you feel you can do, you can pray. You can talk to God directly and give thanks for the beauty that we still have. We are some of the luckiest people in the world. We live in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a beautiful twin island nation. And on that note, thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Angelo. Thank you, Annalisa. It was wonderful to have you on. And make sure to tune in to next week's episode of Ask Why and sign the petition, www.thecatholicpetition.org. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. Take care. Bye. Thank you for joining us in prayer for the earth and the ecological conversion of humanity. The Ecological Examine. Gratitude. I begin my examine by centering myself in the midst of God, who is the God of unconditional love and infinite creativity. I imagine how this God of love created the beauty of the universe. Step 1. I give thanks to God for creation and for being wonderfully made. Where did I find peace and God's presence in creation today? Awareness. I ask for the grace of God to look at the world as God does, to see the world in its infinite goodness, diversity, and interconnectedness. Step 2. I ask for the grace to see creation as God does, in all its splendor and suffering. Do I see the beauty of creation and hear the cries of the earth and the poor? Understanding. I ask for the grace to look closely at my own life and the decisions I have made. I ask myself, how do I care for the gift of creation and the resources of the earth, which are meant to benefit all, including our brothers and sisters around the world and future generations? How do my choices impact the environment and the people in my community, nation, and around the world, particularly the poor and vulnerable? Step 3. I ask for the grace to look closely to see how my life choices impact creation and the poor and vulnerable. What challenges or joys do I experience as I recall my care for creation? How can I turn away from a throwaway culture and instead stand in solidarity with creation and the poor? Conversion. In my desire for reconciliation with creation, I ask God for forgiveness and the grace of ecological conversion. Step 4. I ask for the grace of conversion towards ecological justice and reconciliation. Where have I fallen short in caring for creation and for my brothers and sisters? How do I ask for a conversion of heart? Reconciliation. God calls us as caretakers of the earth, not simply to take the earth's resources for our own benefit, but to use the earth's resources to praise, revere, and serve God. Step 5. I ask for the grace to reconcile my relationship with God, creation, and humanity, and to stand in solidarity through my actions. How can I repair my relationship with creation and make choices consistent with my desire for reconciliation with creation? In concluding our examen, we give thanks to God for the gift of creation. We ask for God's help and guidance so that we may care for creation and the most vulnerable among us, strengthened in our common pursuit for ecological justice. Step 6. I offer a closing prayer for the earth and the vulnerable in our society. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten on this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly unified with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen.